Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Liam, the Prove It Guy, author of Limitation Is A Mirage. In this podcast, I will be sharing with you actionable tips, routines, and insights that I have gathered over 20 years of extensive study with masters, experts, and world-class performers. My hope with this podcast is to save you time, money, and frustration, helping you fast-track your way to mastery. Hey guys, welcome to this bonus episode of the Limitation Is A Mirage podcast. On this episode, I have Master Iain Armstrong. So me and Ian go way back. I think it's about 20 years or slightly more that I first contacted him. So you will have repeatedly heard me tell the story about I found a magazine and I just rang a boy's number on the back of it. That's who it was. I ended up moving over to England and studying, travelling back and forward. So in this podcast, we talk about my first grading and where that was. We talk about where he was and where he's got to and where he is now and where he wants to go. What I do with the martial arts. So like I always say, I don't try to keep my skills in the bubble. I try to expand it to every area of my life. So I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you have any questions, you want to reach out to me or Ian, then feel free to do that. And I will chat to you again soon. Hey guys, welcome to this bonus episode of the Limitation Is A Mirage podcast. Today I am here with Master Iain Armstrong. So I worked with Ian, or trained under Ian, about 20 years ago we started. I travelled back and forward to London for about 5 years before moving over as one of the instructors. Before I get into all of my training with you, do you want to give a wee brief bio of who you are?
Yeah, there you go. So I'm a Kung Fu master, and it sounds a funny sort of term, but I'm kind of head of a fairly big Kung Fu family. Nam Yang is a very old Kung Fu family, which traces its lineage right back to the Shaolin Temple in China via an association in Singapore. Nam Yang was set up in Singapore in 1954. And I've been training Kung Fu now for 39 years and teaching for 33 years. And about 12 years ago, I set up the Kung Fu retreat in Thailand. So it was the world's first Kung Fu retreat. And we got a kind of full-time residential Kung Fu training center here in the mountains in the very northwest of Thailand, in a most remote province. And yeah, it's pretty much what we do. We kind of live Kung Fu, train Kung Fu, talk Kung Fu, right out in the mountains. That's about it.
Brilliant. A few things I want to jump on there. The last point you said about how you live Kung Fu, that for me, whenever I lived over in England with you, and people used to say to me, "What do you get up to today?" And I'm like, "We did some Kung Fu." Like, "What else did you do?" I'm like, "Nothing. We don't do anything. That's like whenever I think when you get into that sort of art, that's what you want to do." And it's one of the, if I go right back to when I started with you, that came about because I found a magazine. So used to be, I don't see many Kung Fu magazines about anymore, but used to be in all of the main UK ones. And like, I tell a story of, I was working in a shop with no prospects, no plans, and I was reading a magazine and I just seen this guy who was doing all this mad stuff and thought, I'm interested in that. And then I remember saying to people, I just phoned the number on the back. This is before we had YouTube and everything. I phoned your number. We had about a 10-minute chat, and 3 or 4 days later, I'm standing on your doorstep in England going, hello. And so the fact that it's so family orientated, your martial art, that's what brought me there, and then has kept me involved for the last 20 years. Is you are all martial artists. Like you said, you talk Kung Fu, you practice Kung Fu, you everything is Kung Fu in your life. So it's why whenever you see me speak, I stand quite tall and I move quite well because everything that you taught me is incorporated into all my talks and things. So just as a quick comeback, do you think whenever people start to study martial arts with someone like yourself that has so long in the industry and has such a really good lineage, like right back to the Shaolin Temple, do you think that's why it becomes a part of their life and not just like a sport class?
When somebody starts, they're very impressionable.
Yeah.
And once those impressions are formed, then they usually stick with the person. So if you had turned up and what you had found was, okay, we got a sports kung fu class, and it's all about have a workout, do a little bit of competition. That would probably have stuck, and that would have been your impression of kung fu. Would you have stuck it out? Quite possibly not.
I don't think so.
Now, we train the kung fu the way that our family, our lineage has always trained it. I trained you the way that my teacher, Master Tan, who you know, trained me. You join the group and you're part of the family.
Yeah.
You eat with the family. You socialize with the family. You don't come to kung fu and then it's 8:30, it's finished now, and everybody just, okay, I switch off kung fu, because it doesn't stop at the end of the lesson.
Yeah.
You are part of the group, and it's really interesting to me, and we've discussed this a lot just recently. When it works like that, people stick it out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Master Tan famously said to succeed in kung fu, you got to do two things and two things only: start and not give up.
Yeah.
And every day you get better, you continually improve. And when you're improving every day, you're succeeding.
Yeah.
Different people will achieve different things. They'll move in different directions. But if you're constantly progressing, you can only count yourself as succeeding. Starting's hard. A lot of people, to make that first step, it's very intimidating. What am I going to? What's going to happen? Am I going to get beaten up? Am I going to get laughed at? What's going to happen? So you got to be brave enough to take the first step. But after that, it's all about not giving up. And if you view kung fu as a type of exercise, people give up on exercise. That is how people are wired. It's hard work, and we don't like hard work. So if there's any possible excuse not to do the hard work, we will take that up. It's raining. I don't really want to go out today. I'm a little bit tired. I need to make a phone call. I really ought to watch something on the TV. Perhaps I won't train tonight because I've got to look something up on Google. Any excuse. The gym industry is based around the knowledge that people will buy membership and not use it. Because if every member turn up to the gym, they never fit them all in. But the best ones are the personal trainers. In the days of being able to find a tutorial on anything on YouTube, why do you need a personal trainer to tell you how to exercise? Why can't you just crack on with it yourself? And the answer is that however well you know what to do, you're going to be too lazy to do it. The personal trainer is your conscience. It's, oh God, they're going to be here in 10 minutes. I better put my exercise stuff on. I've got to get myself ready because my trainer's about to turn up. Oh, I really wanted to do something else, but I booked them now. So, and it's a whole industry suddenly growing up around someone else who is your conscience. The Chinese worked this out hundreds of years ago. You become part of a kung fu family, and you keep going because of the other people and your commitment to the other members, and because it's a social group, and you go along because you meet other people, you see other people, and you build relationships, and the relationships are what keeps you going. Because again, we're human, and humans don't like to exercise, but for humans, social relationships and the feeling that I'm part of the group, I'm a valued member of the group, massively important for us. So for those reasons, we keep it up.
Yeah, it's mad that we're quite happy to let ourselves down and not do it, even though it's physically, mentally, and emotionally better for us. But if I know you're going to be there, then I know I have to show up and bring my A game and things like that. Whenever you were talking there about like the age of technology, we've talked about this before, about how hard it was for me to train with you at the start, because I live in a different country. I was traveling back and forward, and then I'd be phoning you and you'd be describing intricate movements over the phone. And we taught, I remember sitting outside in the grass. We used to have a Friday morning meeting, and you described this like magical place. And I remember leaving thinking, he just said he wants to get a mountain and put a training camp on the mountain and then live and train people from all over the world. And that was like 2006. And I remember thinking how mad I thought that was at the time. But as the years went on and I watched you progress towards that goal, I think that's what's really helped me with, maybe I should aim for bigger goals. Can you describe sort of how you got from a kung fu club in the middle of London till like where you are now? Like, where are you now at the minute? What's?
I'm in Thailand, in a little town called, or just outside a town called Bai, in Mae Hong Son province, which is the northwesternmost province. It's Thailand's most remote province. It's full of kind of hill tribes and mountains and trees. Trying to think how to cut the story down or make it too long. So here's the interesting thing, that when I was working in a day job, I always had this idea that I would do loads more kung fu and be loads better at it if I was a full-time martial artist, if I didn't have to work on the day job. So when I got the martial arts centre in Epsom, south of London, I was a full-time martial artist. And did I spend all day doing martial arts? No.
Yeah.
But more to the point, I used to train my students to the best of my ability, and you were a classic example. But I still wasn't getting the kind of top results that I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but you remember when we used to go to the Isle of Wight and we used to do the training camp for a week or 2 weeks. Then we would be training all day. It was up early in the morning, train, have breakfast, train, have lunch, train, have dinner, spend the whole evening talking about kung fu and watching kung fu videos. And you could see the people growing and progressing in that environment. So okay, so we got to do this full time. So I got to open a kind of full time residential instructor training centre. That was the idea. So he thought about doing it in Britain. No chance, yeah. The weather's wrong. The whole kind of economic climate is wrong. The food's wrong.
The whole culture of it would be wrong there.
Yeah. And then I actually looked at southern Spain, Malaga. Yeah, everything's cheaper there. The weather's a lot better. Food is reasonable. But we were doing pretty well in Epsom at the time, so I just put it all on the back burner. And then it was only when, at the beginning of 2006, I met Boo, who is now my wife and who is Thai, and started kind of traveling to Thailand and visiting her. That is like, wait a minute, yeah, now here's an idea. And I started training in Kung Fu in Thailand right back in 1992 with Master Tan, and we used to come here to train. And the very first time I came to Thailand with him, we used to minibus it up from Singapore through Malaysia to southern Thailand, and mostly trained in southern Thailand. But the first time we got trained right up to Chiang Mai, and we only stayed 3 days, and I could see these kind of advertisements to trips to Mae Hong Son. And I would have loved to have come. It sounded great. It would have been amazing in 1992. But we never made it. I always said I'd come back one day. So I'd had experience of Thailand, great country, but now it's like, okay, you know what? Now here's a chance. Suppose I did that residential centre in Thailand. Economics are good. The business environment is good. It's not too kind of restrictive. Food's great. Weather's great. It's a place that people like to come. It's got great travel connections. So, whoosh, we started looking around, and we looked at a number of different places. But I said to Boo, before we make a decision, I want to see Mae Hong Son. And so she came back and said, look, I've spoken to my friends at work, and they said, if you go to Mae Hong Son, you've got to go to Bai. It's a fantastic place. So I said, well, what's great about it? Well, I don't know really, but my friends say it's great. I said, well, okay, how about this? If you can make the arrangements, we'll go to Bai. So Christmas Eve 2006, we kind of rolled up here in a minibus, having done this quite amazing journey through the mountains on the just unbelievable roads, hairpin after hairpin after hairpin bend. There's 762 curves on the road to Bai. You go right up to the top of the mountain, right down, up again, all through the forests. And I was kind of sold before we'd even got here. But at that time, it was very popular with tourists, and it's like, you know what? If we can't make it here, we'll never make it anywhere. So we quickly started looking around at pieces of land, and we narrowed it down to two favourites, and the one where we ended up, and another one. And the crazy thing was that initially I chose the other one, and it's a very interesting place where there's a very interesting piece of land. I went for the other one. I thought about it a lot, So we talked to the owner, and he said, right, meet me at the post office tomorrow afternoon, and we'll get going on the paperwork. And the next day we went down to the post office and met the guy, and he said, you know what? Actually, I've changed my mind. I don't want to sell it after all. I want to keep my piece of land. So okay, back to here. And it's interesting. It's got a big Bodhi tree right in the middle. The Bodhi tree is the tree under which the Buddha achieved enlightenment. So it's a kind of sacred tree in Thailand. And it's got a very, very strong kind of spirit presence. And in the end, Boo and I both said, did we really choose this place, or did this place choose us? And we kind of agreed that this place chose us. And it's an interesting place. You know, you got some very, very strong spirits here. And if they don't like somebody, the person won't stick around. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But they like us, so we don't think we'll ever be able to leave. Yeah. And we did question in the beginning whether we had chosen the right place, because it's always been very hard to get employees around here, because Bai is one of those unusual places that has overemployment. There's not enough people around to do all the jobs, so there's always job vacancies, and you have to fight to kind of attract the employees. And believe me, that's all changed since COVID. But initially, it's like, you know, did we pick the right place? There's water shortages in March and April, but you know, after a few years, we said, yeah, you know, we did get it right, because it's a place that people like to be. People like Bai. So, you know, the atmosphere of the school is massively important, but to get the really good atmosphere in the school, it's helpful to be in a broader kind of area with a good atmosphere. People like being here, therefore they're likely to come back. And yeah, it works well.
So it's kind of just like you took what you had developed in Epsom and the atmosphere and the building and the people you surround yourself with, and just put it in an amazing scenery and place and like culture, and which again, it sort of shows to me. I always talk about like people had said to me, why did you go to England to train when there was so much around Ireland you could have done? And I said I just went to do it the first weekend just because I thought, why not? I'm just going to go and see what happens. But it was the atmosphere and the life. Like, even your mum was into Kung Fu, so every single person I met was Kung Fu. It wasn't like anybody outside of it. So for me, I was like, if I want to do something, I want to immerse myself in it. And that's what I'm going to do.
Exactly. Yeah. So there we're back to the Kung Fu family. You know, it's a family. When you're in, and you feel part of the family. And you know, keyword there, immersion. Immerse yourself. You know, you wanted to be right into this, and there's not so many places that give that total immersion experience.
Yeah.
So, do you want Kung Fu as a pastime, or do you want it as a way of life?
Yeah. I remember even whenever the weekend that you came over and Master Tan and
Chung Bang came over as well.
We went to a place called Kelly's Inn on the way from the airport, and it's a real Gaelic football place. Like, a lot of people from Ireland.
I remember. Yeah.
And we landed in the full Kung Fu gear, and I had like a top knot,
shaved head, and top knot. We just sat in amongst all these Gaelic people. And I remember Luke was with us at the time, and he hadn't been in this environment. And he was like, everybody's looking at you. And you're like, because we're awesome. Everybody's always looking at us. I just love that it crossed over so much to my day-to-day life. Like, I always tell people, I don't care what people think of me. I'm pretty active on social media, and I get haters all the time. And people will say, how do you deal with them? I'm like, I don't. They don't bother me. I don't care about any of that. So it crosses over. But we were talking before this. Now, for me, it was difficult. And now whenever I remember from you telling your story about, like, I traveled to England, but you traveled to Singapore and Thailand for your training. You went in that respect. But you've actually made it easier for people now, because the camp's now an online camp as well. Do you want to give a wee bit about that?
Yeah. Well, it's something we should have done 3 or 4 years ago. And we were talking about this a lot last year. But the COVID as the really big kick up the backside, we've now put the Nam Yang family online. So
Right.
we've set up online membership, and it's kind of consistent with what we've been talking about. We don't say we've set up online courses or online training.
Mm-hmm.
We set up online membership, set up an online family, because remember, it's that human element that keeps you hooked in and gives you success. So as well as obviously the training courses, we're trying to kind of put our history up there, history, the philosophy. We've got profiles for the people, and we've got forums for the people to kind of connect, because we're trying to get people to really connect with each other and interact with each other, and therefore encourage each other. And that's, that I think online training, that's the key thing, that if you kind of get into the social side of it, you will continue and you'll grow, because it's almost easier than going to a class that you decide, I can't be bothered to do it today. Since we set it up, we had to learn a lot about online training, and one of the things we've learned is that people drop out. But people don't drop out of social dynamic.
There's so much that people can connect to, like we said earlier. Like, they can just go online and watch someone do some kung fu and learn it. Like, I remember before being over with you, I was drawing out pictures that I saw Jackie Chan do, and then like trying to do all those poses. Whereas you've just taken the whole like family aspect and put it online. So you're not just doing a course or signing up for a course, you're signing up to be a part of something. And
exactly.
So, something that always stuck with me, and I love the fact you're online now, because I would have always said to people, like, if you can get to train with them, you should, for the lifestyle, even if you've no interest in competing or fighting, it's the lifestyle aspect. And I remember one of the first times I was ever in Brighton, and Sam took us out to some wee nightclub, and the dance floor was empty. There was nobody about. And as you know, I'm a bit boisterous and center of attention. And I remember saying to Sam, bet you I can get through the whole Swan Young in the middle of this room before anybody interjects. So I start doing the Swan Young, and then 3 guys come wandering towards me, and I'm thinking, all right, what's going on here? And they looked at me and they were like, is that the Swan Young? And I was like, yeah. And it turned out they were from like I think it was the Portsmouth Club or Plymouth. It was what?
Portsmouth.
Yeah. And the fact, like, they'd never met me. I'm some Irish guy in the middle of Brighton. I look like I'm on my own doing the Swan Young. And they just joined in, and we ended up, then Sam and everyone else joined in. We ended up about 6 of us in the middle of this club doing some Tai Chi. And to me, that's the bit that always sticks. I was like, just in the middle of, in my head, I was somewhere I've never been before and don't know anybody except 3 people that are with me. And the next thing, I'm making new friends, and we interacted, and like we chatted the whole way through my time over in England and after that on Facebook and stuff. So the way you described it there, as you're put the family online rather than like a course and then again, I assume people who have joined the online stuff have the opportunity to meet people from all over the world, because I know now you've got clubs in different places. And
I mean, at the moment we're just kind of building it up slowly, but it's already, I mean, it's a kind of global community already. Since we started in Thailand, we have had people from all over the place. We've actually got a club in kind of the Urals industrial zone in Russia. I have had it for a long time. I've been out there about 5 times. And we've got a little, before COVID hit, we had a little group in Guatemala. We got people teaching in some quite interesting places. And, you know, through doing Kung Fu, I've been to about 30 different countries. And you meet some really interesting people and do some things that you'd never do.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for these kind of connections, you see some weird things. But it's, you know, once you're in part of that family, yeah, you kind of welcome and doors open that would never open otherwise. Yeah, you get to do some really interesting things and meet interesting people. So
yeah, it always feels to me that no matter where I go in the world, I know I could make a phone call if I was stuck or lost or whatever. I could make a phone call to you and say, there has to be someone here. And I have an example of that as well. Is, do you remember the time there was a Kung Fu club, kind of Kung Fu club in Oma, and they ended up at the Worlds in Italy, and they rang me and they were like, look, whatever happened, they didn't have their equipment, they didn't have any kit, they didn't know what they were doing or have a clue. And I was like, hold on, give me 5 minutes. And I hung up, and then I rang you and I was like, Ian, you're in the Worlds, aren't you? Yeah. Go and just look around for a bunch of really white looking Irish fellas that look lost, and then please help them. And you were like, yeah, there's about 30 over there. I'm like, yeah, that's them. And that to me always stuck. Like, again, because they were connected, I knew a couple of them, they were connected to me. You went over and I think you ended up giving them pads and taught them the rules and all the stuff they should have known before being there. But like, that's what I mean, what you're saying there about the interesting things. I know I've done talks in loads of different places, and usually I'd say 99% I mention martial arts, or I do a martial arts demo. I might have people try to throw a punch at me or kick me, or I'll do a chopstick or whatever it is. So someone will always come up and have a conversation, and then you get into a lot, I think, better, more personal conversations. And like you said, you get to spend time with random people you would never have spent time with because of this. Like, two off the top of my head is like the original Red Ranger from Power Rangers. I ended up spending about half an hour chatting to him, and then he invited all the other Power Rangers over. We ended up having this iron shirt conversation because he's seen me talk about stuff and knew what I was on about. And a guy, Manu Bennett, who's like was in Lord of the Rings and loads of other stuff, I ended up on stage with him doing the haka because he knew I'd be able to handle being on stage. So whenever I talk about martial arts, I talk about the family aspect and how it crosses over into every other aspect of your life, like my speaking career and even like my magic career. I used a lot of the techniques that you showed me for magic, but also for reading people and keeping an eye and watching people. Yeah. If I was to ask you what you think the most beneficial thing you would get out of martial arts, what would that be? I know that's a massive question, but
well, ideally, the ideal is to master yourself. So when you say, Kung Fu master, what are master of what? What makes you a master? Hopefully you can master yourself, and if you can, that's perhaps the ultimate in life. And in the end, if that gives you peace of mind and a quality life, then you've done pretty well. You've done better than most people. There's a lot of steps on the way there. So if we're kind of not aiming quite that high, what I think is interesting, I've spent a lot of years trying to figure out people's motivations in martial arts. Why do certain people do martial arts? And my conclusion is that martial arts is absolutely about self-esteem.
Yeah.
And every human needs self-esteem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you look at people's life strategies, if you look at people's behavior, it's generally driven by self-esteem. They've all got their different strategies to achieve self-esteem. And doing a martial art is it's a staged kind of self-esteem course almost.
Mm-hmm.
It really is broken down in a typical kind of karate situation. You do a little bit and it's relatively easy, and you get your yellow belt and a certificate.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people in the kind of medium levels of martial arts, they're just completely laughing at it. You got a yellow belt, hey, big deal. That qualifies you to do what? But actually, at the time you get that yellow belt, it's a massive step forward, because you've got to do this test, and you've got to go in front of all these people that really know what they're doing, and they know how bad you are, and you've still got to do it. And you finally, after all that kind of the ordeal, you get your yellow belt, and it's just amazing. It's about building people's self-esteem.
I remember the first grading I did was in St. Joseph's Hall. You had flown over and we did a weekend course, and then you took me.
Yes. Yeah.
Took me aside, and I was the only one who had the uniform, because it was the first course we did over here, and I'm standing in my uniform. You asked me to find a room, and I could just find this room covered in chairs. So we only had a wee space. And then, at this stage, we had known each other for a few months, so we'd talked a lot, because once I find a mentor, I'm there all the time. How do I do this? What do I do here? What's this going on? And it was like you just transformed into, you may as well have been a dragon. And you're like, do your stance.
Yeah.
And my brain's like, oh shit, what's a stance? And then you get through it. And then once you say you've achieved the grade, it's like, for me, it was like being in a computer game. You just level up. You're like, I better stand better now. I'm a level 1 now. I know the Sun Chen, and I strut into my class, and because that's when I started. I just wanted to be a fighter. I just wanted to be able to batter people. So I thought, now this is it. And then I remember whenever you started teaching me the second form, and you were like, the main thing here is a shuffle. And I was like, this is gonna blow people out of the water. Next time I'm sparring, I'm doing shuffles. They'll never get near me. So whenever you explain it's self-esteem, I had no, if you had said self-esteem to me back then, I wouldn't even be able to spell it. I didn't have a clue about that. But when I look back, it's what kept me going. It wasn't the fact that now I could do this form, or now I could do this block, or I was handling myself better in situations. It was that the situations, it was probably about 10 years after doing martial arts where I realized what people meant by the more you learn, the less you do. I always thought that meant I'd be so amazing that I would just knock people out immediately. And then I realized, well, it's your demeanor, it's your stature, it's how comfortable you are talking, it's all of it. People don't want to engage with someone that's like a baddie doesn't want to get in a fight, they want to attack somebody. Whereas if you come across like you're confident, or like I was a bit worse than most, I was up for the fight because I always wanted to know, well, does this stuff actually work? Which I would never advise for anyone watching, or would I? Who knows? But so I love the answer of self-esteem, and not like what if this was a martial, if it was like a kung fu sports club or a kickboxing sports club, it would be probably about competition or being competitive or being aggressive or whatever it is. But it basically just comes down to what people are searching for from day one, which is to be better. So what's the next steps for you now? Where are you moving with the online and the club? And like, if you could wave a wand, where would you see the whole plant?
Whoa. well, right now we're sitting here. We haven't got any students because Thailand has closed its borders and no one can get here. So, you know, really we'd like to be back where we were before we had all this. But again, you know, we've got the online dimension as well. Actually, I don't have any ambition really to do any more than what I'm doing at the moment. I'd like the school here, the retreat, to be a success, to be, you know, full of people, and I'd like to build up the online courses, the online membership, and get that really kind of functioning and becoming a family. And then my objective is to pass on the art, the lineage to the next generation of people. You know, in the past, I've had much bigger ambitions. And last year, you know, I was really ready to set up Kung Fu Retreat number 2 in Portugal. And we went over there, took the whole family over there for the second visit. So in October. And ironically, almost before we had even left Thailand, my wife had decided it was not going to happen. You know, he is not going to do this. You are not doing this. It's a bad idea. It's an appalling idea. And yeah, she's extremely good at getting her way. And it didn't happen, but it's a really good job it didn't happen because you know, the way everything's gone, it would have been a colossal waste of all of our savings. But we had some very serious conversations, and however good you are at martial arts and fighting in general, it doesn't help when your wife is, you know, onto one of those kind of rants.
Strong-willed.
And I agreed that you know, I would not, you know, go off on any tangents like this again, and that, you know, from now on I'll just be content looking after the Kung Fu school here in Bai, and that there won't be a number 2. This is the only one. She was very much in favour of the online stuff, and so I'm now being a good husband and staying put here and looking after the school here. But actually, you know, she's right, because I'm not getting any younger. You know, kind of, it does get harder as you get older to keep doing the stuff every day. Recovery time increases. You need more recovery between training sessions. So on the kind of philosophical level, you know, they say that if you know when enough is enough, you'll always have enough. You know, and I've done pretty well. I'm in a pretty good place here, and it doesn't make sense to keep driving forward and be too over ambitious. A few more years to get the place back on track, a few years to keep it ticking over really well, and then kind of be gradually handing it over to the next generation, and then gradually, you know, stepping back, giving the people more and more responsibility, and hopefully, yeah.
I love the idea of you saying that. Now, in my head, I'm just thinking about how the next generation could be someone that just watches this and decides, like now in lockdown, to jump on the online and train the online to reopen.
Yeah.
Because people who are watching this could be in the same boat I was when I just found the magazine and thought, I had no idea, no clue, probably couldn't really spell Kung Fu, and just jumped at the chance. And it's taken me like my journey of my life from then to here in the last 20 years has been like, just like you said, you end up in some crazy situations, you meet some amazing people. Like I very rarely now sit and have small talk conversations with people, because I don't need to. When people like when you meet them and they say, what is it you do, they're expecting the generic normal answer. And when you say, I'm a public speaker, my background's 20 years in martial arts, and I'm a professional magician and trainer, they just light up, because they're used to something else. So I just sort of fills me with excitement that could be someone watching this now going, I'm going to jump on the online bit. So I'm going to ask you two more things before we go, and then I definitely would like to get you on again, because we've 20 years of speaking that we could do. So the first question is a self-indulgent one for me. I'm just asking everybody, if you had a superpower or were a superhero, what power would you have? You already have the power of Kung Fu, so.
Nothing springs to mind. So the answer I'm going to give you is this, that I don't really feel the need to have a superpower. I'm quite content with my life and, how it's going. I don't have any particular desire to have a superpower. If there was something that I wanted, I would go out and get it. And that's generally how I've lived my life. As you know well, I can wash my face in broken glass and bend a sword on my neck and do all of this kind of stuff. There's a good video on YouTube of you cracking a big wooden baton over my private parts. In recent years, I've become much more interested in the mind game and kind of getting into people's heads, and but generally speaking, the stuff that I want to do, I can do it. I don't sit around dreaming about, wouldn't it be great if I was kind of Superman and I could fly or project a laser beam out of my whatever. It's, if I want to do something, I just get out there and do it.
Your answer fits with everything that you said. You live it already, super interested in life. You can do incredible things, and you achieve whatever it is you set your mind to, like having your own mountain side thing retreat. So perfect answer. I just love asking it, because it makes people really think about, well, what is it that's, and then like you said, you already had said you were content, and then when you thought about it, you were like, no, I'm actually content doing what I do. The last one's an easy question. Where can people find you? I'll put all the links below anyway, but where's the easiest way for people to get in touch with you?
KungFuRetreat.com, NamYangGlobalFamily.com.
And then Facebook, that's it. Everything's the same, is there?
On Facebook, if you go for Kung Fu Retreat, Kung Fu Retreat on Facebook, or you can type my name in and you'll find me.
Well, I'll put all the links to everything that I'll even put a link to the video where I get to hit you. Not often do people get to hit
that's it. There was a golden opportunity for you, wasn't it, to whack somebody in the nuts with a great big lump of wood.
You were technically my boss at that stage as well as my instructor.
All the better. It's nothing quite like cracking the boss in the nuts, is there?
you were lying on broken glass, as far as I remember that day as well.
I was indeed. Indeed. Yeah.
That was for the Kung Fu movie. I'm just having these flashes now.
Yeah, that's right. No, it was
the Legend of Sancho boxing.
Yeah, and then they cut it from the movie. What a waste! But yeah, it's still, and everything on this reel. It's not kind of set up, as you know, with real glass, real axe, real bits of wood. Yeah, well, that was quite a funny day. That one. You probably remember it. Was quite an amusing day. Yeah,
we took over Brighton as baddie warriors or whatever. We
were the bad guys. Yeah.
Dragging people up Brighton Pier. Yeah, we'll get into that in the next one as well. Well, I got to let you go. So thank you very much, Ian, for jumping on. Really appreciate it, and I look forward to our next one. And to everyone who tuned in, thank you very much. Speak to you all soon. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Liam. Take care.